with news you can use. Today, Wall Street Journal headlines: Houston apartment owner loses 3,200 units to foreclosure. Yesterday, in the Business Insider magazine online version, landlords who bought thousands of units are facing a reconciling. And then also today, another article dealing with a landlord in San Francisco that is in the process of losing $44 million, 460 units, vis-a-vis a deed in lieu. Let's talk about these for just a second. The folks in Houston actually lost these units to a foreclosure auction. They couldn't make payments, and they haven't been able to for the last several months. Those properties went to auction and they sold off. The ones in Los Angeles, and that, by the way, was 3,200 units for a total of $230 million. The ones in Los Angeles was LA, let's see here, Labina Venture Partners, I guess, $400 million, 1,037 units they lost at an auction, also at an auction. They got foreclosed and they auctioned them off. And then also today, or this happened yesterday in San Francisco, a large group called Developer Build Incorporated deeded in lieu, which is basically a process whereby you avoid foreclosure, but you give the property back to the bank. Now, typically banks won't, or lenders won't take these things back, but they must have checked the title and assumed that they didn't have any other debt on the property. The bank accepted that deed in lieu of a foreclosure. It was $44 million, 460 units. So what's going on out there in the commercial space and specifically in the multifamily space? You see a lot of gurus going out there telling people this is the place to be in a downturn, in a recessionary environment. Get yourself into multifamily deals. That's bad advice, in my opinion. We saw what happened to the office buildings during COVID. For those of you who don't have a large concentration of office buildings, here in Southern California, specifically Orange County, there are buildings all over the place. And I'll do a video in a couple of days and actually show you these things. These are large 15, 20, 30-story buildings that are empty today. They got empty during March, April, May of 2020. Nobody's come back. Everybody works from home. The buildings that were previously occupied and were being paid rent on are now starting to go into foreclosure, into default. No one's making payments, and they can't convert these things over to housing units. Everybody thinks that's something you can do. You really can't. So that was the first duck to fall. The second now is these multifamily units. This was kind of unexpected, but realistically, when you look at it, they met the three criteria that will doom you in the multifamily business. In other words, building values are falling. So all of these things on either an appraised basis or an as-is or replacement basis are falling in value. Number two, interest rates are rising. A lot of these loans in this commercial sector are what we'd call adjustable rates in the single family. They're the equivalent of some part of it's fixed and some parts adjustable. Now, when they refinanced or they bought these things during COVID, they bought these things for 0.1% interest or 0.5% interest or 1% interest. You know, everything made sense with everything being occupied and all this government money coming out to pay them. You know, things look good. But the minute the government stopped sending those checks, the tenants stopped paying in a lot of cases, and there was foreclosure or eviction moratoriums. There still are here in California. Literally, there are still eviction moratoriums in place because of COVID. That's what they're calling it. Still under state of emergency out here. And just later this month, the County of Los Angeles is going to allow for evictions to proceed for the first time ever. San Francisco just started allowing them on March 31st, so 10, 12 days ago. And the city of Oakland, for example, doesn't even have it on the calendar to talk about. So you cannot be evicted for any reason in the city of Oakland. Now, you know, common sense would tell you, duh, I mean, this is going to happen to these landlords at some point in time where they're not getting, interest rates have gone up on them and the rents are going down. And collectively, they're not collecting enough rents. And in a lot of cases, especially here in California, I blame the state. They've enabled the non-payers to not pay. And some people have taken advantage of that. The majority of these people who aren't paying, not because they couldn't or can't, it's because they won't. They will not. They don't have to. This is a great example for government run amok and how it's going to affect the private industry and private segment out there. So just in the last 24 hours, these three huge apartment owners either filing bankruptcy or in most cases here, foreclosures, deeds in lieu. You're going to see a lot more of this over the next week or two. You're going to probably see it in the news on some Sunday news cycle a couple of weeks from now as some big disaster, but we've all known it's coming, and I think it's going to be a lot bigger and a lot worse than what everybody was expecting. It is significant. It is going to affect the economy in the real estate side, but on the commercial, not on the single family side. And it's definitely going to affect the banks. We're going to talk tomorrow about the banks and the situation they're in. They've got some problems out there right now, and this isn't like Silicon Valley Bank problems. These are depositors are pulling out a ton of money from these banks, and it's not being replaced. And so there's going to be a credit crunch that's going to be perpetrated by the people who brought their money out of those banks. And the banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, they're going to say, we don't have money to loan. We can't help you. And so it's going to be an interesting thing out there. Credit crunch on top of everything else is going to add a little more fuel to the fire. But, so far, knock on wood, the housing thing is holding in there at this point. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that maybe we dodge a bullet on this recession versus we're the ones that tend to lead it or at least follow it in the recession in the previous recessionary periods. All right, that's it for news you can use today. Thank you for watching. If you get a minute, I would love to hear your comments about what you think of these videos.